Well, good evening, ladies and gents. This is the one and only Spot of Nerd coming to you on whenever you listen to this. For me, it's a Sunday night. For you, it could be a Sunday night too, Monday, whatever it is. So, I actually wanted to talk some real stuff, but it's also in relation to a pretty fucked up movie I've recently just watched. I don't know, for those of you that are out there that are into horror flicks, there actually have been some really good horror flicks recently that have come out. I mentioned before there's a movie called Barbarian, and I mentioned that I will never ever go to an Airbnb again. Ha ha ha, jokes, but for real. Cliff notes, this person goes to an Airbnb, another person is there. They find out that some serial killer used to live there and still actually does live there and basically inbred and created children of children of children of children of children. So, it's pretty messed up. The way it's a good film. Like it's not like Oscar worthy. Let's be real. This isn't going to win any rewards anytime soon, but definitely if you want to sleep with the light on for a couple nights, watch this movie. And then I saw that the Smile movie recently came out, and I wanted to see that because everybody was specifically, at work was like, "You got to watch this. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but you got to watch this." So look it up. Uh, Again, I will tell you just like I was told. I'm not going to tell you anything other than the fact that the movie is called Smile, and it is pretty fucked up. So spoiler, again, if you haven't seen these movies, which probably should have given you a spoiler before with Barbarian, but with Smile, that's where I'm going to also kind of maybe lead a little bit more into the real side of things after this quick little gist. And we'll go into it more throughout, obviously, this series, Spot of Nerd, and however long we continue on with this. But the movie is a psychological thriller in relation to trauma. And it got me thinking, especially lately. I'll even give you some stories that I've actually gone through just even recently in relation to trauma, that still affect me to this day. And I mean, let's be real, we all have been through trauma. I mean, dear God, we go through it probably every single day. Hopefully you are strong and you have a support system that can help you get through whatever you need to. But it's always there, and in my opinion, and it's just basically just fucking sucks is what it is. So anyway, kind of the Smile movie, again, it's a very psychological thriller. So it's creepy as hell. Just bear with me while I kind of explain it. But basically, the movie entails if you witness somebody basically committing suicide in front of you, it's like this demon possesses them. And then, of course, they kill themselves. So the witness of that thus turns into the crazy, quote, crazy person, because they will now start seeing essentially imaginary things that aren't really there, and eventually end up like those previous. It's a curse, so you witness a suicide with a creepy ass smile demon. Now you're the creepy ass smile demon, and then somebody else becomes a creepy ass smiley demon, and so on and so forth. But the end of the film, so big major spoiler here, the entire film is really dedicated around the psychology of battling your own brain, battling your own mental state. People around you, of course, they think you're crazy because you're seeing these things that are happening, but they're not happening. And I mean, my God, we can go down so many roads. I've even researched the crap out of, mental states and, schizophrenias and some psychopaths and serial killers. And that's why we stay up at night, is because we can't sleep, because we watch way too many serial killer documentaries on Netflix or whatever it might be. But we we do it to ourselves. So if anything, sometimes that trauma is induced by ourselves. I'm fully aware of that, fully believe in it because we decided to watch, the John Gacy trials where he murdered 33 people and buried them underneath his house. So that's beside the point. But hopefully you can kind of get where I'm going because in my own life, I mean, again, I can share stories up the yin yang about my own trauma in relation. And that's why I want to kind of talk about it after watching this movie Smile because, the end of the film, it shows the point in which the individual is lost. And it's creepy because, there's the main actor lady, she basically goes, the final fight is between her and her brain, and her opponent, the brain, is this creepy ass demon that like splits its face open and shoves its demonic body into her. And then of course that's when the other person comes in and witnesses them killing themselves. So it's really really fucked up, but obviously it's a movie, it's Hollywood. So but it is in relation to actual trauma, I believe, that goes on in our day-to-day lives. It doesn't matter who you are. So what I'm trying to get at is, you know even recently, I was mentioning before with the new gun laws in Washington and having trouble with getting the legally acquired magazines for my firearms. The good news, I was able to find the right ones. I was able to purchase them through a legal gun shop place that has been in business for years. So for any FBI agents listening or any policemen listening, go ahead, look it up. I have done this appropriately and legally, so suck on my balls. Anyway, um, but what's interesting, and my point to that story is because I had to go into this. I won't mention what the gun store is, but you can. There's plenty of them around Washington that are legit and good and stuff like that. You know what? No, no, I'm gonna change my mind. Um, Hold on, I'm gonna look it up because it is actually a good place and they deserve business. So it's in Bellevue. Hold on, I'm literally looking it up on my tablet right now. Oh, son of a bitch. Why does it never give you local ones? Oh, okay, yeah, here we go. Okay, so it's in Bellevue. It's the West Coast Armory Indoor Range. And, you know, so I've been kind of going in there a few times these past few weeks. And anytime I go in there, I catch myself. And this is where I've kind of sometimes have to step back and realize my own trauma that I've had in the past. I will go into much more detail through other episodes, because I am a firm believer that trauma does kind of relate together in some form or another. For example, you might have three different trauma events, but I do think they all correlate to one thing, even though they might be different situations. So, what I'm getting at is specifically with the firearm issue, I kept going in there and I'm catching myself apologizing to the clerk people that are helping me out, and they don't care. I mean, they're there to help you out. They're actually really good people. They're really good guys and they want to help you. But I kept catching myself and I'm like, why am I apologizing so much? And he's like, don't worry about it. The guy that was helping me out, he's like, hey, you want to make sure you're doing everything right and blah blah blah. And I was like, but no. I was like, hold on a second. It all makes sense now. So I caught myself and I kind of told him the cliff notes, and I'll tell you guys the cliff notes because it's been long enough now, and I'll have to go into more detail later because it is a very long story. But I actually was involved in essentially a workers' comp case. You can look it up. Anything where there's um, a lawsuit, you can actually look. It's public record, so you can look this information up. And I have no issue with you looking it up if you want. But it was me against my old employer, the San Diego Zoo Global. And again, I've always said working in that job was to this day the greatest job I ever had. It really was. I got to do things that nobody else on this planet could. And I would, honestly, I would go work in that field in a heartbeat if it wasn't for my medical issues. So, maybe one day I will, if I can one day, maybe administrative work or something. But that is where a lot of my own trauma stems from because, not only was I pushed out, in my opinion, um, I mean, dear God, do wildlife conservation places do good for the world? Absolutely. They save animal species, they bring joy and hopefully, conservation efforts around the world. But I can definitely promise you they are not all peaches and creams. They are not all rainbows. Um, there is a lot of bureaucracy with these places. There is a lot of poor leadership and poor management. And sadly, I have to mention this is my own personal opinion. I do believe sometimes at the end of it, it's the animals that suffer. And, alongside being pushed out of that company, I believe, I used to actually have a blog about what I would talk about, what I would do in that job. And I remember one time having a meeting with one of the managers basically saying, you got to take it down. And it destroyed me. It really did. It absolutely ripped me to pieces because, I was doing my dream job. I was doing something that not a lot of people get to do. And, when you go to work and you're happy for it, and now somebody's telling me you can't tell anybody. So it was heartbreaking, but the more traumatizing part, of course, to this day, which still affects me, was the injury, the workers' comp injury. So through the whole, I guess, quote unquote lawsuit trial thing, I just lived in fear. I absolutely lived in fear because I came to find that essentially I was being spied on. Now, you might right now start thinking, oh my God, he's crazy. He thinks people are watching him. But no, I mean, if you think about it, if you have a workers' comp case, you have an injury on the job, companies are in their own right legally allowed to hire people or organizations or businesses, whatever it might be, to look in on you, to basically vouch that you are genuinely injured. So that's where my profusely apologizing came in, was because I kept feeling I was guilty. I kept feeling I was the one in the wrong, and obviously I was not in the wrong. In fact, if you look up that case, I actually won that case because I felt that I was not getting the proper treatment. I spent tens of thousands of my own dollars to help my own body. They obviously tried to put it as like a insurance fraud type deal, but ultimately, no. Why would I spend tens of thousands of my own money when I simply just wanted to be treated and get the proper medical attention? It's just, yeah, it's asinine to think that. So I can go into more detail on that in that related aspect later, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is, it's traumatizing to this day. And I've mentioned recently that this last year has kind of woken me up in the fact that I'm not going to kind of sit back anymore. I'm going to really just kind of start standing up for myself in that respect. So I'm really glad I was able to catch that. And, I see it also in other aspects of my life. And what's interesting, I'm a very big people watcher. I work in a very public area where there's lots of people, specifically the general public. And, with the holidays coming up now, it's getting busier, it's getting crazier, but it is always fascinating to just watch people. And that's kind of just really kind of going full circle with this movie Smile, and maybe kind of finishing up this podcast episode. If you look it up, the psychological aspect of the film, Smile, is, but yet in turn, these people, of course, are killing themselves in the movie. You know, it's beyond true in the real world. Even in the last 2 years with the COVID, we have a mental issue with the world right now that is astronomical in my viewpoint. But yet we put on a happy face, and it's just, you kind of have to have a little chuckle to yourself after watching this film because you actually kind of get it. You realize that so many people around us are suffering mentally, but yet they keep a smile. And I do it. I am fully totally do it. I am not fine. 100% I am not fine. But, if somebody says, hey, how are you doing? Of course I'm going to tell them I'm fine. And I'm going to smile and tell you everything's great because we've shaped society now. And I know, trust me, I'm fully aware what I'm about to say can go down many roads and many paths. And maybe one day we'll go explore those paths. But we have designed ourselves in society today to basically pretend and be fake when it comes to pretty much everything, in my view. Now, that's not to say that you can be good and that you can be great, but to be great and good all the time, I'm gonna call bullshit. I really am, because no way, no how is anybody good and perfect all the time. It's just not humanly possible. And if you are, I think you're lying to yourself. I really do. You could stub your toe, you could bang your head or get into a car wreck or something like that, but you are not fine all the time. And with this movie Smile, it just kind of wakes you up to that fact of, God, we are fake as a human species, as a society. And, you know, I will finish up this video, or not this video, I guess it's a video if I post it up on the YouTube, but I will finish up the podcast with this because I'm going to put one more podcast up probably in tomorrow or Tuesday, specifically in relation to the midterms. You know, positively, optimistically, we are starting to wake up as humans, and I am beyond excited for that. I'm also worried and anxious and everything in between, but I'm more excited because people are finally starting to wake up and they're starting to realize what their governments are doing to them, what they have done to them in the last 2 years. Yes, I'm fully aware that this also might sound like a broken record, but I will continue to say it because the bottom line is when you go out on Tuesday to vote, if you can vote, what I want you to do is think about things like this. When you go to fill up your gas tank, go fill up your gas tank and then vote. When you think about maybe your friends or your own business that got shut down for 2 years, think about that and go and vote. Think about when you had to watch your loved ones die over a FaceTime call while there was a choreographed dance going on in the hallways. Then go out and vote. Because it is time that we stop pretending like these elitists or these politicians that think they know what's best for us and they make decisions for us. It is time we kick them to the curb and we start getting people in there that actually mean to do what they say. That's why I'm a big, huge advocate of Trump. I am fully on board with Trump. I am fully on board with, you look Kerry Lake, DeSantis in Florida. These people, what they say, they actually do. So if you're offended by a tweet, I'm offended by gas prices that are double, if not triple, what they were. If you're offended because, I don't know, something AXYZ, I'm offended because for the last 50 years, these people haven't worked a day in their life. So again, just me being very passionate behind that type of stuff, take charge of your own life. You have probably experienced some form of trauma, relationships, life, mental state, physical state, whatever it might be. But I promise you, promise you are not alone. And I promise there are people out there that are going through the same thing, if not worse. So count your lucky stars. And I know you want to throw up with a cliche on that, but the bottom line is something it took me 35 plus years to realize. You have got to stop giving a fuck about everybody else around you and start giving a fuck about you. Now, it's easier said than done. Again, took me 30 odd years to figure it out. But what I am saying is, even if it means you end up alone, trust me, my own life right now, I would rather be alone than have to continue to be fake and be the person that I have not been for the last 30 years. I'm going to go down that path in another podcast, but I look back now and the biggest fight I have now is trying to not feel guilty for spending so much of my life helping others and trying to be better for society when I put myself to the back. It was the dumbest thing I could have ever done. And now I'm going to be first. I'm going to be number one. Friendships, relationships, family, career, whatever it might be. I'm going to be number one. And if you don't like it, there's the door. And sadly, I've seen it because, quite frankly, there's a post I put up on Instagram recently about, um, who checks in on you. Not a lot of people are checking in on me. If anything, hardly anybody at all checks in on me. And that's not a woe is me. I want to make that very clear that it is not a woe is me. That is simply a case of, that is just proof of what I am telling you. That simply taking care of yourself, if that means you have to walk away from friends and family, then that's what you have to do, because it's not healthy. It is, dear God, it is not healthy. And I will go down that path again later, but trust me, it's not been good in that respect. But I am optimistic now for what can be in every aspect of my own life, and I'm going to stand up and fight for it. So I hope you do too, because you deserve it, unless you're an asshole. If you're an asshole, suck my balls, as I've said before. You get my meaning, hopefully. Anyway, y'all, thank you so much for listening. If you wouldn't be ever so kind, I would love it. Share me, subscribe me, comment me, like me, whatever you got to do to get me out there. I super duper appreciate it. And again, if you like this content, tell me what you think. I'd love to talk about it. If you don't, that's cool. But you got this far. Sucks to be you. But at the same time, appreciate it. Thank you very much for Thank you very much actually for getting this far and listening, because even if you don't like the content, hopefully I'm maybe teaching you something. I mean, I mean that realistically. Hopefully maybe I'm teaching you something that you didn't know, or maybe you can take and put it into your own life for the positive, not the negative, the positive. I know it's weird coming out of my mouth when I say stuff like that. So, yeah, it's pretty weird, right? But hey, get used to it, because we might start doing more of that later. But yeah, anyway, thank you all so much. I really do appreciate for all for listening, watching, all the above. And we will talk to you guys later. Bye.